now let's take a look at events. What I've got here is a small application with 4 nested divs and some CSS that just goes ahead and uses flex boxes and makes smaller and smaller divs as the numbers increase. Let's look at the actual what this looks like. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and just boxes around. So we can see we've got the outer box here is actually the root div, which I don't particularly care about. So we are talking now about events. And there are different types of events that occur in the DOM. There are events like a click event. Let's look at that for example. Let's look at adding to, let's say, div4 an onClick. So if you're looking at the DOM itself, it's lowercase, but when we're using React, it actually uses camel case for all of these. OnClick is basically going to be a function that gets called when div4 gets clicked. We're going to have to write something called, let's say, handle click. We have our handle click. Let's write such a function for that. We could do an inline, but we'll see. It'll be handier later. Handle click. Let's print that we were clicked. I am going to a new line and then print we were clicked. We save. I go over. If I click on 1 or 2 or 3, nothing happens. But if I click on 4, I get a handle click. So that's great. We get a handle click, and we know that div4 was clicked on because that's where we put the click handler. We can verify that. If we look, E is an event that gets passed to a click handler. So we can say E dot, and we look at the target. The target is the component that got clicked. And within the target, we can have some information. Probably the most important information is the ID. So let's just say target ID. So I'm here, I click on 4, and I get my target ID is div4. That makes perfect sense. Let me add a click handler to div3. In fact, the same click handler. And so now if I'm here and I click on 3, I get handle click, target ID is div3. Makes perfect sense, right? What happens if I click on div4? I'm going to get handle click, target ID div4, right? Let's refresh this so we can see what's going on. If I click on 4, I get this little 2 here. Says that it's printing this line out twice. It's printing out handle click, target ID div4 2 times. And the reason for that is if you've got a click on a deeply nested element, it may be that parents want to know about that click too, that ancestors want to know about it. There is a bubbling up that happens of events. When you click on 4, an onClick will be called, assuming it's one defined. Then we go to its parent onClick if it's there, its parent's onClick if it's there, its parent's onClick if it's there, finally all the way up to the root. So in this case, what's happened is div4 onClick is getting called and being told, hey, div4 was clicked on. And then div3 was being called and it's told, hey, some descendant of yours, div4, was clicked on. So we can print out a little bit more information. You can go in and print out not just what the target is, but what the current target is. The current target is different in that it is the element that is actually handling the click, as opposed to where the click initially happened. We know since it's an ancestor that the click is happening somewhere in the bounds of this current target, but it might have initially been on some subchild. So let's just take a look at this. And now when we click on 3, we get correctly that the target is div3 and also that the current target is div3. So we're saying the target is the thing that was initially clicked on was div3 and we're handling it within div3. If on the other hand, we click on 4, we get the message first off that we got to click on div4 and the current target, the one that's handling this div4. Again, we got to click on div4 and the one that's currently handling this div3. So we're getting 2 of these because we defined 2 onClicks. Let's just go ahead and add them to each of the divs. What do we expect? We expect if we click on 1, it's going to just say the target is 1 and the current target is 1. But if we click on 4, we should get 3 calls to handle click, 1 for each of our onClicks. So we're going to get for every one of them, the target is going to always say div4 because we initially clicked on div4, but it's going to div4 And then div 3 parent gets told, hey, yeah, click handle there. And then div 3's parent, which is div 2, gets told, yes, a click handle within yourself. And then finally, div 1 gets told, yes, a click handle within yourself. So this distinction between target and current target can be important. And it's also really important to realize that we do have this bubbling that happens. Let's go ahead and look at another type of event. We're going to create a checkbox, and we're going to use an onChange. So onChange is that some change has happened to this input type. This could be, for example, a checkbox or a text type or text area. We'll go ahead and write ourselves a handle change. Handle change we will make very similar to handle click. Handle change, again, is called when there's some change that happens to it. So let's try this. We've got a checkbox. If I click down on the checkbox, well, first, so I just click down. It's important to know that the handle click actually happens when you release the click. So there is a mouse down you could use on a mouse down. So what happened is I clicked on it and now I move out and let go, nothing happens. But if I click on it and then let go, then what do I get? I get a number of things. I get that I handled a click on, well, we didn't have an ID. Let's go ahead and define an ID for this checkbox. That'll make it clearer. And let's refresh this so we don't see anything messing it up in the log. I'm going to click and release on 4. And what do I get? I get told that I got to click on the checkbox, and that gets told to div 4 and div 3 and div 2 and div 1. It doesn't get told to the checkbox itself because we didn't add an onClick attribute to the checkbox. And then finally, we get told there's a handle change on the checkbox. So the state of the checkbox changed. That gets told to the checkbox. Now, we can, as well as having an onClick in each of the divs, we could go ahead, let's just put one of these up here in div 1. We're going to have the same onChange. Come back here. And now, if we check the checkbox, we see that we get our handle clicks, and then we get 2 handle changes. One that is handled within the checkbox because we have an onChange that we've defined there, and then another within the div 1 because we have this propagation of events all the way up. We propagated an event from the checkbox to its parent, to its parent, to its parent, until we finally got to div 1 that actually had another onChange. And then if that had any ancestors, then an onChange. Those would be called too. So this bubbling happens up, and this is called bubbling. There are ways to stop it if you want. So for example, let's make a handle click that stops propagation. That is, it stops the bubbling. And the way we do that is there's a method within the event called stop propagation. I'm going to use this one, let's say in div 3. So instead of calling handle click, I'm going to call handle click stop propagation. So what's going to happen? Well, I would expect that what happens is if I click on div 1, I get a handle click div 1, yes. Click on div 2, I get a 2 and a 1, which I'm getting. If I click on 3, I just get a 3. If I click on 4, I just get 4 and then 3. Now, if I click on the checkbox, I just get the 4, the 3, and then the handle change for the checkbox. Note what's happening here is we're not stopping the propagation of the onChange, right? Div 3 doesn't define any onChange attribute and doesn't call stop propagation. So we're only calling stop propagation on clicks and not on changes. Note that in the DOM, as far as the browser is concerned, there's actually 2 different events. There's on input and on change. And in the browser, the on change is only called when you actually leave the focus. So for example, if you have a text box, let's just look at one of those. Here we've got a text box. and I'm going to type A, B, C. So we're getting all sorts of handle changes there. What's actually happening in the DOM is it's actually sending out on input events. So there's input events and it's calling on input handlers. The difference between on input and on change is while I'm still in this field, it doesn't send out any standard DOM on lowercase change events. Instead, it's just sending out on input events. React is trying to sort of normalize things. And so has, for historical reasons, on change is called on every single modification to the element. If you're coming from doing raw JavaScript programming, you may be surprised by that. But in general, it's probably the effect you want. And it works especially well in React, where we want to have a chance to make sure that whatever's in our DOM matches our actual data. So we want to be notified of any change to the DOM so we can update our data.